Hello, dear friends. It's Carly, and welcome to another episode of the I Learned podcast. Super excited to get to talk to you today about spoon theory. This came up in the full moon heart to heart that I did with Jody and Maddie. We recorded it this past Sunday on July 10th, and then it aired on the channel yesterday on Wednesday, July 13th, on the full moon. Um, and in there, one of the many fascinating things that we talked about was spoon theory came up. And I realized as I was talking about it, I don't think I've ever talked about it on my channel before. So I wanted to make a specific episode about what is spoon theory. And I was thinking yesterday, there are a lot of things that I've discovered in my life about one, how to like essentially have a spoon budget kind of going in your mind about like what's truly worth spending your spoons on so that you do make sure that you're conserving energy to get to what's most important. But also, can you get more spoons? And I think the answer is yes. I think there are absolutely things that we can do to allow ourselves to wake up in the morning with more spoons. So, obviously, if you have no idea what spoon theory is, you're like, great, so why do I need more spoons? I think one should be plenty, thanks. Okay, so spoon theory is a way to conceptualize energy management for those who have chronic illness is where this came from, and that's how I learned about it. Be about like 6, 7 years ago now. My friend was in a chronic illness state. Temporarily, she did end up like she's worked her way back from it a great deal, has healed a lot since then. But it was an extremely slow process, and she was bedridden for like a couple years, like fully dependent on being fed and bathed. And I mean, it was a low energy time of like there was no energy to watch TV, there was no energy to read, there was only energy to be. That was it. And in the further recovery, like after those first couple years, as she was able to kind of come back to life a little bit with more energy, one of the things that she found was spoon theory. And she was telling me about it as a way to explain what it's like for her, the way she has to think about her day and the way she has to approach life in general. Like, it's not okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes in the morning making my spoon budget for the day. No, it's like literally moment to moment to moment to moment. It is a checking your spoon budget. Like, do I have enough energy for this? So, the idea behind spoon theory is that each of us wake up in the morning with a particular number of spoons. So, let's say I wake up every day and I have 75 spoons. And, my friend during those 2 years, she woke up every day with maybe four, four spoons. And, Dolly, I've said many times, is like the most energetic person I know. She wakes up every day with between 2 and 500 spoons, is my estimate. That's about how much effort she expends every day, how much energy she burns every single day. And so, yeah, like I'm sitting here with 75, she's maybe got 500. So I can't keep up with her during the day. I know that, right? Like that's just clear based on watching each of us live side by side. But spoon theory really like is an attempt to kind of quantify that, to kind of like put it into perspective. Like, let's say that every single activity that you do, it costs roughly the same number of spoons for every person. So let's say taking a shower costs 6 spoons, and getting in your car and driving to the grocery store and walking around and doing your shopping, filling your basket, checking out, loading your groceries, bringing them home, unloading them, putting them away in the cabinets, that costs roughly 30 spoons. Okay? So like for me, for example, like if I had to do that in a day, that'd be like my whole day. I probably wouldn't be able to do much else. Because yeah, a shower's also 6 spoons, and fixing myself something for lunch, that's 4 or 5 spoons to stand up in the kitchen and do the things, get the, so like you start running through them real quick when you think about like every time you go to the bathroom, you get up and walk in there, that's a spoon. Like if you only wake up in the morning and you have 20 spoons, you start to think about life very differently. Like, do I really need to get the mail every day? Hell no. Because every time you walk to the mailbox, 2 spoons. So I'll get the mail once a week. How about that? I'll spend 2 spoons once a week and I'll be okay with that. I'll just let it go. And a shower every day, I think not. That just doesn't even sound necessary, you know? Like I'll get these wipies and I'll just wipe myself like on day 2 and then I'll take a shower every other day because 6 spoons, that's a lot. If you only woke up with 20, you got to feed yourself, you know? And then there's like, what are you actually going to do all day? You know, like there's, like she said, like, I didn't have the energy to watch TV. I'm like, what do you mean? There's no energy to watch TV. Like, it doesn't take any energy to watch TV. She's like, yes, it does. Yes, it does. It costs spoons to hold your eyes open and look at something and focus on what they're saying and follow along with the story. It costs spoons to watch TV. And so it's like the day is long if you only got 20 spoons. And so I feel very lucky. I mean, I feel like I wake up with way more than that. I wake up with plenty to take good care of myself and do something most days, like whether it's, you know, go to the grocery store and do my shopping, like that's my thing for today, or I'm going to get on a Zoom and I'm going to have a 2 hour conversation with someone. That's my thing for today. Like I get to do about one thing a day. That's roughly where my energy, it feels really balanced. But like I said, like I think there are things that you can do to get more spoons. So I made 5 of those that I'm going to talk through. Um, but this spoon budget, this gets really interesting because I've always kind of kept this in my head. Like I said, I haven't really talked about it on the channel, but I do absolutely look at spending energy in this way. It's a lot like if you were living paycheck to paycheck, you have a very clear understanding that if you want to pay rent or you want to pay your mortgage, you will have to make sacrifices and not spend that money on other things so that the money is there when it is time to pay rent or it is time to pay the mortgage. And that's exactly what a spoon budget is. It says, you know, I want to go to dinner with my friend tonight, and that's going to cost about 20 spoons to go and be in public and talk to my friend. And, you know, again, if you woke up with 500 spoons, 20 is nothing, right? You're not conserving energy for dinner. That's no big deal. But if you only woke up with, you know, 40 and you need to make it to the evening with 20, you're not doing anything all day long, hoping that you'll be having energy in the evening. So that gets to be like a whole different mindset. And the thing is, though, even the person who wakes up with 500 spoons can run out of spoons. And I want to talk just a little bit about what that means, running out of spoons. What does that mean? Well, it means basically your gas tank is empty, your battery's low. It's like, you know, your battery is on 5%, which would be plenty to drive home and like put it on the charger. No big deal, right? I'm not worried. My battery's at 5%. I have a phone charger. What if, you know, you wreck your car or you have a flat tire and now you're stranded on the side of the road, and while you're trying to be on the phone and talk to AAA, the phone dies? Now, is it a problem that your battery was at 5%? Yes, it is. So it's not about like, it's not even about how many spoons you woke up with. I think anybody and everybody can benefit from this concept of, like, from a strategic perspective, do you ever want to allow your battery to be at 5%? Do you want to push yourself to where you've used 95% of your spoons and you're not done for the day yet? You're like, oh, all I got to do is drive home. Well, that can turn into a fiasco real fucking quick. And then what are you going to do? You know, like you think, oh, I'm done for the day. I'm going to go home. And then they call in, like they need to go home sick or whatever. Now you got to go back to work. It's like when we let our battery get down to a critical point where it literally cannot handle one more blow, one more task that's calling on our energy reserve is basically gone, if you ever put yourself in that position, in my experience, that's the moment when catastrophe strikes, because it's teaching you that that's not a great place to be no matter what. No matter if you woke up with 500 spoons, if you woke up with five, it doesn't matter. Don't let yourself get there. Like, have a boundary that's sooner than that. Say, when I hit 25% of my energy supply, I stop giving. I stop because I know that I need to conserve that last 25% to get me home and safely plugged back in on my charger so that I can like recharge and go again tomorrow. Like, because the worst thing that happens if you come home with extra energy is that you spend that extra energy at home. You spend it on the people at home. You spend it on the relationships there or the environment that you create for yourself, your home life. You invest that extra energy there. That's not a bad thing. You do an extra home project to burn off that little bit of extra energy that you brought home because you didn't need it, because you got home safe and sound, no big deal, like you normally do. And so, yeah, maybe you have a little bit extra energy to spend at home before the day's over. No big deal. But my philosophy is like more like 50%. You know, if I'm at like a 50% gas tank, that's pretty critical. Mostly because my number of spoons is so low to begin with. So, like Dolly at 50%, like I said, that's like she's got a couple hundred spoons left. Dude, it's like 3 days worth of spoons for me, you know? And she's only at 50% of her battery. So that's not as dire of a situation. So maybe she's able to say, like, okay, well, yeah, when I'm at 20%, 25%, whatever, that might be more where she's looking for. Like, when I got 70 or 80 spoons left, I better be thinking about coming back to the charging station. I better be thinking about circling back around to self care and recharging and all of that. Sleep, rest, time with friends, whatever that looks like for you. So yeah, running out of spoons, it can happen to even people who wake up with hundreds of spoons every single day. You know, you think you've left yourself enough energy and all of a sudden something unexpected happens and all of a sudden your amount of energy that you had looks small and like it's not near enough. You know, the difference between overwhelm and excitement is believing that you can rise to the challenge that's in front of you, and you can feel overwhelmed compared to excitement. They are two very different things. Excitement says, oh boy, here we go. What's this gonna be? Oh my goodness. Like, wow, what a surprise. Like, let's see what unfolds. And like a genuine excitement for this is a turn of events. Okay, let's flow with it. Versus overwhelm, which says, I don't have the energy for this, basically. This is too big for me. I'm too small for this. I can't. I can't. And not because I can't, because that's not who I am, or I'm not capable of rising to this challenge. I can't because my number of spoons that I have left in this moment is too small to spend on this task. This task costs 100 spoons, and I'm sitting here with 20. I'm overwhelmed. You know, that's all it is. You're out of spoons. So hopefully, you know, it's not a time sensitive thing. And maybe it's as simple as saying, like, wow, this looks really important. I'm going to come back to it first thing tomorrow morning when I'm fresh, when I'm restocked with my 100 spoons. And, you know, this thing costs 100 spoons, but I'm going to see if maybe there's a way I can spend 20 or 30 spoons tomorrow to move it forward and work on it a little bit. And maybe talk to a friend and spend some spoons on a conversation so that they can work on it with a few of their spoons. And maybe we'll spread it out a little bit and we'll all chip away at this 100 spoon thing that I want to get done. So, you know, there's lots of ways to approach it from this critical energy management mindset if it's not time sensitive. If it's urgent in the moment, you got to do it. You don't have the spoons. Overwhelm is, you know, it's like when Esther Abraham says, the person asks, I've fallen out of an airplane. Help me. What do I do? And she's like, just relax. It'll be over soon. Like, you know, it's not permanent, it's temporary. So there are ways to soothe ourselves in the moment, even if there's not anything we can do to really like get around having to do something that we physically don't have the energy to do. But hopefully we do. Hopefully we can literally put off the thing. Like, just delay the thing until you have energy to face it, and see if that doesn't change your entire perspective of the thing that's in front of you if you just come at it from a full battery charge instead of feeling like you don't have enough energy or resources or skills or whatever to come at this problem. So I'm going to come back on a second one and talk about how do we get more spoons. So, I'm super excited to get to talk about how do you get more spoons, because I think this conversation is so awesome in that it's gonna help me summarize how I think about the mechanics of energy management better than I ever have before. Because again, when you put it into this language of spoons, when you think about it, like you're holding a handful of spoons, and when you take a shower, you put down 6 of them. You don't have them anymore. When you put on your socks, that's 2 spoons. When you walk out to get the mail, that's another spoon. When you fix yourself lunch, that's 4 spoons. Like, on and on and on. It just like it makes it so tangible and easy to think about. And as I learned that from her, and I definitely resonated with it, not because I have really ever resonated with like having a chronic illness, but I have known for a long time that I feel like I wake up in the morning with less spoons than other people, not in like a victim way, in a factual kind of way. Like, I learned, like, kind of just naturally how to be critical about spending my energy, because it's not infinite. It's actually pretty small compared to how much I want to do. So I feel like I picked a lot of this up along the way, and then these 5 pieces are those things that I've learned about, how does the energy field of our body actually work? You know, my friend Jody the other day said something really awesome that I had never even thought about before. She's like, we get so caught up in the outside world and the macrocosm of life, the big picture, the bigness of life. And she said I was so good at articulating and giving voice to the microcosm of inside of ourself, the universe that is inside of you, the entire world that is inside of you. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is how your energy grid works. I think these things, I think, are universal. But again, that's my hypothesis. So I would love to hear from you as far as how this all resonates. But number one, number one biggest impactor of our energy field is how much time we spend in nature. So if you spend a lot of time in nature, nature itself, like being outside, being connected to the planet is even better. Like having your bare skin connected to the planet, like taking your shoes off, or if you're gardening and your hands are in the soil, um, the closer you can actually physically get to the planet and to trees and to animals, and their vibration exists in a place that is essentially like a purifying filter for our energetic grid. So you can think of like when you go and put yourself in nature, you are exposing yourself to a filtration system that will cleanse the energy field around your body. And another one that can be really powerful, and it kind of depends on who you are, which you're going to prefer. So you kind of got to experiment with what has that greatest purifying, cleansing impact on your energy, because other people, and I'm one of these, it's like if I go stand on the edge of a big body of water, like you go to the beach or even go to a reservoir or a lake or even a pond, like just next to a big chunk of water. Water itself has, again, a very high vibration, a very purifying vibration, and that acts as almost like a magnet to like draw stagnant energy up and out of your system, that giant body of water that you're like physically putting yourself on the edge of. My favorite is there's a reservoir just a few minutes from my house and they have like a little beach area. And so just to like go and like walk back and forth in the little waves, like in the sand, and just, it's not very long, but I could do it for an hour, 2 hours just to, again, like when you're investing that time, it's like taking your car to the car wash. Like, are you accomplishing anything? You know, maybe. Depends on how you look at it. Like, it does serve a purpose. And if you do want your car to be clean, you would take it to the car wash and spend the 10 minutes or an hour, however clean you're wanting them to get it. Um, yeah, you would invest that time if that's what you want. So, like, if you wanted your energy grid to slow down or be able to exhale some really frantic energy that's inside of you, my very first step is go outside. Get outside, as close to a bunch of trees, as close to a big body of water, up on a mountain where you can see really far with a wide view. Like these kinds of things will drastically, almost immediately, like within seconds, impact your energy grid. So super powerful. And I'm going to come back to that when we get to number five, as far as like how it just, again, we are going to always loop back to how much time are you spending really in the vibration of well-being that is emanating from this planet. And when we feel like things are not going well, like that's the first question. It's like, yes, they are. The planet is on its axis, the sun is rising and setting, like the rain is falling, the crops are growing. What do you mean it's not going well? When was the last time you exposed yourself to the dominant well-being of the planet? And doing it regularly on purpose, again, because you're exposing yourself to that natural filtration system of the planet or the body of water or whatever you're choosing. Number two is a big one for me, and I have had a lot of experience with alcohol and other depressants like alcohol. And there there's something to this, you know? Like I was I didn't click on it, but I saw something in passing the other day about like the word, there's a fox on the end of the field. Oh, you hardly ever see one of those. Anywho, the word for alcohol is like spirits, and it doesn't mean like spirit, it doesn't mean giving you spirit, it means eating spirits. It means like basically you have demons inside of you that you're trying to like poison with this, that like that's what alcohol is for, is to poison the bad parts of you. And I mean, you are a whole creature, right? Like there's just you. So, I mean, this is me talking to me, like, you know, lovingly pulling myself along this path one step at a time, because alcohol is a slippery slope for me, because I'll quit it for a while, and then if you just have a beer or two beers, like the impact of that is literally almost nothing. Like there's no problem with having a beer or two. Absolutely none. It's not going to do anything to your energy grid, basically. The net effect is almost nothing. But if you drink a beer every day for a couple months and then you're stretching it to two beers sometimes, and now it's two beers every day for a month or two, and now you're stretching it to three sometimes, and now it's three beers every day for a month or two. When you get to that point, it's eating your spirit. And I've I've looped around that. I mean, I've had like a daily drinking habit that I've been like off and on with for the last like 4 years, and I'm in an off stage again. I think it's been a couple weeks since I had alcohol. Um, But it is incredible to me how how many more spoons I have when I don't drink. Like it's fucking noticeable. And it's one of those things that it's like I've quit, quote unquote quit, put it on pause for a while. Several times in the last couple years for decent chunks of time. Like I've gone 30 days, I've gone 45 days, I've gone like, and not exactly those numbers, but right around in that ballpark before I go back to it. And it's always innocent. It's always like, well, I mean, I only had one and it was good and yada yada. And then it's like, yeah, one every day. And then it's two. And it's one of those things where, it's not wrong and I'm not mad at myself by any means, but in the clarity that I have right now, I would really love to remember that one, it's a slippery slope, and two, it is a depressant. It is like it it doesn't build your spirit, it dampens it. It doesn't give you spoons, it takes them away. And as much as I do like drinking, I like the experience. I love the taste of beer. I like it just is a wholehearted enjoyment of this experience. Lately, I've had a couple moments where like I really did want beer because that sounded like a good experience, but there was this bigger picture of basically spoon theory and like that is costing me spoons. I like having more spoons more than I like drinking alcohol. So I chose not to. The last couple times that I wanted beer, I chose not to. And I didn't restrict myself. I didn't, make myself do something that I didn't want to do. I did what I wanted to do. I wanted to have more spoons. So I did what that required. Like I took that path. I made that choice. Um, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to start drinking again someday. And we'll be right back here learning this lesson on a whole nother level. So we do our best all along the way. Number three, this is another one that especially, I mean, kind of all along my life, my weight has kind of fluctuated, and I definitely would put myself in the category of emotional eater. I definitely binge eat a lot of times. Like me and food have an interesting relationship, and I do see as I take this journey of becoming aware of my emotions, how sometimes my go-to is eating when I want to cry. My go-to is eating when I'm mad. My go-to is eating when I'm bored. And I'm able to, through my emotional awareness, I'm able to see like, okay, but if you're bored, then maybe call a friend. Maybe like, I don't like, let's go outside. Let's go talk to Dolly. Let's get something going. Let's do something. We don't necessarily need to just eat because we're bored, but like when I wasn't in my emotions, I realized like there's not just one reason why I was overeating and the kinds of things that I was eating, where again, it's a lot like the alcohol. I'll tell myself, like, having one cupcake isn't bad, and it's not. Having one cupcake, having a little bit of sugar is not going to hurt you. It's not going to kill you at all. Like, it is no big deal to have a little bit of sugar. But that's not where it ends with me. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not having a little bit of sugar. When I start going down that road, it's like more and more and more and more and more and more. And that is the part where, again, it's like overconsumption of sugar dampens your energy. It drags you down. It's an anchor attached to your ankles. And when you stop overeating sugar, you have more spoons, period. So that's one. Gluten is another one for me personally that I experience that with. I hardly ever consume wheat. Very, very rarely do I eat bread. And if I do, it's going to be pizza. And then it's totally worth it, right? And a little bit is not going to hurt you. But when I chronically eat gluten, when I chronically drink alcohol, when I chronically eat a decent diet of sugar, these things radically decrease the number of spoons that I have access to the point where, let me like try to put it into a practical way of saying that. Like, I'm on day maybe 7 of not having an afternoon nap. Like my old, like while I'm drinking, while I'm eating like that, like when I'm kind of like off track, I guess you could say. Um, when I'm in that space, I'll wake up and I'll be awake for maybe 7 or 8 hours, and then I'll nap for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then I'm awake for another 4 or 5 hours, and I go to bed. So I'm going to bed before 9 p.m. for sure. And it took a 3 hour nap to get me to like 8 p.m. So that was my energy level, like even just a couple weeks ago. And right now I am on a solid like 7 day streak of no afternoon nap. And I'm like awake until like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, having woken up at like 5 a.m. So like the amount of energy that I'm talking about is like I'm telling you, I was waking up 2 weeks ago with maybe like 70 spoons, and now I have roughly 150, like somewhere in that ballpark, where like, it's still not Dolly, it's still not 500 spoons, but 150 compared to 70 is a lot. That's like a fuck ton. It's a metric fuck ton. You know what I mean? So yeah, processed food and sugar, they have a very different impact on your energy grid than do whole foods that are closer to the planet. So like whole fruits and vegetables, whole meats and fish, like as close to the source as it possibly can be is going to be the purest vibration. And basically these two are talking about that, like what we eat and what we drink, the vibration of those things becomes the vibration of our energetic grid. And again, when you put something in your energetic grid one time, one little bit of it, almost nothing will make a very big impact because there's so much going on. It's like one drop in the ocean. But when you start like the freaking, whatever it was, Exxon Valdez oil spill or whatever back when it's like leaking 1 million gallons of oil a day. Like when we're talking those kinds of numbers, like yeah, I mean, it makes a difference, the impact of what you're introducing into your system. And especially when you're doing it every day, because your organs need a certain amount of time to detox things from your system, to like cleanse the toxins that you do put in there. So the fewer toxins you put in, the fewer toxins you're going to get out. And all of that is adding to basically what I want to call the clarity of your energetic grid. Because how I feel lately without alcohol, like this go round, is like just the clarity, the focus, the awakeness, the alertness, the centeredness, the ability to be grounded. Like I feel like I was kind of in a fog. I was like this, the channel was fuzzy, like there was so much static. There was like just a little fuzz around like my field that just didn't really let me interact fully and clearly and in my full essence, like with the outside world around me. And I feel so much more, so much more alive, so much more aware now, with all these extra spoons to spend in my days. Like I cleaned the other day, you guys. Like, I probably spent like a solid 20, 30 spoons on cleaning for, I spent maybe an hour, hour and a half, like, walking around doing the things. Like, I wasn't cleaning like a mad person like I used to back when I was like not in touch with my body at all, and working myself like a literal slave. But I went in my own pace and I cleaned for like an hour and a half. And I'll bet you it was probably, I don't know, like it's been at least 6, 7, 8 months since I cleaned. Like Dolly cleans all the time. It was definitely before Dolly moved in. She cleans way more often than I do, and yeah, I haven't done any of it. And I cleaned. I spent the energy to clean because I had the energy and I was kind of out of stuff to do. I was like, I don't like all my stuff that I would normally do, all the stuff that I would normally spend my spoons on. I already did all that for today. Now what am I going to do? I told her yesterday, I'm like, this is so weird. I'm not used to having energy to spend on things like this, you know? And so that's the fun thing about figuring out, like, how does your energy grid work? What are the things that you're introducing into it? And is it giving you energy, or is it muting your energy, zapping your energy, draining your energy? And that's the next one is number four, draining relationships and influences. And that includes things like media, social media, news media, and internet consumption in general. So, like Reddit and other forums or whatever. But it also includes your like real life, social life, family life, work life, all of these different relationships that you have around you and how they're going. Because if there's friction, if there's dissatisfaction, if there's discontent inside of those relationships, basically that is going to run in the background. It's like on your phone when you have something like open running in the background on your phone and it drains your battery really fast. It's like that. When there's unresolved shit between you and the people that you care about, it's very uncomfortable because we are wired for connection, like biologically wired to be with each other, heart to heart. So when that's disrupted, it can be very distracting, it can be very draining. So the best bet there is like address it, like talk to the person, connect with them. And if your relationship doesn't let you do that, you got to ask yourself, is this the right relationship for me? If this person isn't willing to address this unresolved tension with me, like we're on the same team, is this a person that I want on my team? You know? So these are things to think about as far as like within our energetic grid, there's so many different factors that are impacting how it works, right? There's the stuff we put into it that we're eating and drinking. There's the stuff that we put into it by what we're looking at and what we're listening to. There's the stuff we put into it by the choosing what are we giving our attention to? What are we consuming through our attention? So all of this is introducing things and energetic impacts into our grid. And especially like just kind of like endless internet consumption can again be that drain of like setting you up for spending your precious energy more towards comparing yourself to others or beating up on yourself because other people are doing XYZ and you're not. Whatever dynamic comes from looking at other people's lives instead of feeling your life and feeling like what would make your life better and truly coming into owning how your life feels and what influences help you feel better and what influences are like an anchor tied to your ankles, dragging you down. And that's not to say that, certain people are bad or, shouldn't exist, but it is to say that sometimes the most loving thing that you can do is set a boundary between you and another person. And maybe that boundary isn't just what's best for you, maybe it's actually what's best for them too. And maybe you're just the one that's able to actually say it and own your energy and do what's best for yourself. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, like, all of my messaging kind of circles around this idea of we want the battery charge because when we have access to our 100% level, like I think there's something that like unless you have had a period of your life where you taken really good care of yourself, you may not know that like there is a version of you that exists when your battery is charged from 90 to 100%. That like if your battery is only ever like the highest you ever let your battery charge is like 80% and then you yank it off the charger and you're like good to go, that's enough. You don't even know. You don't even know what's possible when you let your battery get to 100%. It's a whole different you. And so that again goes back to that very first part of like, do you even want to let yourself get down to 5%, or do you want to have a boundary that's higher than that that says when I'm at quarter or half charged, I need to get back to raising my battery back up. And that's why I said half, because really and that's why, again, why I only do one thing a day, because I really only try to connect with people while my battery is at 90 plus percent. That's the version of me that I take out into the world, is when I'm charged 90 plus percent. That's what you're getting right here on this podcast, is me having done 3 hours of morning time. My batteries are charged to the max. Let me come on here and do yet another thing that's going to charge me up, talk and share and tell stories and all of that fun stuff. So, yeah, this is a way that we can think about, like, kind of a Saturnian type question, a Saturn question. Who do you want to be in the world? What what kind of ripple effects do you want to have? You know, in today's culture, we think of influencers as the people with the blue check on Instagram, and I'm here to tell you every single human being on this planet is an influencer, because we are essentially energetic beings. And when we feel the energy of another, we're influenced by it. So if you're at 20% and that's the version of you that you're offering, that's the energetic impact that you're having on the people around you. And if you're at 90% plus and that's the version of you that you're offering, that's the energetic impact that you're having on the people around you. So, you know, it really does come back to, who do you want to be on the planet? And can you, do you see, or can you see, or do you agree that, like, in order to be a mindful global citizen, really, like, I owe it to the collective to keep my battery as full as I possibly can. I don't want to operate, like, I say a lot, like, I used to operate between like 0 to 25% charged. I'd like charge to 25% and then I'd work down to crash and die and power down mode, and then you'd have recharge to 25%, and that was like my range. And now I feel like, you know, I don't think I've been lower than like 50% in quite a while. Like, when I get to 50%, that's when I start charging. That's way too low, really. I mean, that's only a couple catastrophes away from total hopelessness. So, yeah, I should probably like go ahead and recharge my batteries. So, that that's just like all kind of ways to think about the influences that you allow to push and guide and plant seeds in your energetic grid. You know, who are you allowing to influence you? Who do you like to be influenced by? Who do you feel better when you spend time with them, when you listen to this content, when you know, where do you go to find things that help you to feel better, and how can you do more of that on a regular basis? And number 5 is, what do your thoughts and your self talk sound like? So, this is yet another influence that we allow to impact our energetic grid. Um, our self talk is an amalgamation of the conditioning that we have gone through so far in our lives. And the cool thing about conditioning, okay, like, conditioning often has a little bit of a negative connotation around it, just because we're talking about like brainwashing in a sense. Like, you know, you were like literally indoctrinated. These are like cult type words, and it literally is. Like, every single human is basically born into the cult of their family, and you get indoctrinated, you get brainwashed by this particular mindset, this particular life view, and that is your conditioned state. And if you've never done a single bit of inner work, then your self talk is just a repeat, like, literal copy and paste version of whatever your parents taught you, whatever your upbringing taught you. But here's the cool thing about conditioning, is that it never ends. And we can take ownership of that process at any time. And that's essentially what daily self-care is continuing your own, like, being the emperor of your own daily conditioning, like your own daily ritual of reconditioning and new conditioning that adds layers and makes more dominant these new ideas about everything is always working out for me and I love my life. I'm grateful for this day, this new day, this opportunity to be new in this day and connect with others in a heart-to-heart fashion, like whatever it sounds like. But there's opportunity to condition yourself again by looking back at who do you like to be influenced by? Who does it help you to feel better to listen to? And how can you be doing more of that on a regular basis? If we don't check our self-talk, if we're not monitoring how are we treating ourselves, what are the expectations that we are putting on ourselves, because that really sets up the foundation of how we treat ourselves. Like if we expect ourselves to perform at a certain level and then we don't, that's when you beat up on yourself. If you didn't have an expectation about performance and you just said something like, I want to have as much fun as I can have, and then it was fun, you'd be happy, right? The beating up on ourselves, the guilt, the self-doubt, the second guessing, all of that is based on some kind of expectation that you're putting on yourself. And so looking at our self-talk can really help us to like suss out what are those expectations and are they fair? Because again, maybe they're a copy and paste version of something that you picked up along your path from someone who was maybe well-meaning at the time trying to help, but that isn't a good fit for you. That's not how you need to operate. Like for example, one of mine was this mindset. My dad is famous, like his half day, quote unquote. He's like, we're just going to work a half day, you know. I don't know what your version of a half day is, but his version of a half day is 12 hours. That's a half day. It's a 12-hour day. My version would be closer to like 2. Yeah, 2 hours is a half day. So what is your expectation? And so growing up with people who thought like that about work, I overworked myself. I mean, this was my soul's path. I mean, I chose them for a perfect reason, but like I overworked myself. I pushed myself to like basically take pride in working 60-hour weeks, 70, 80-hour weeks, like hanging my hat on that like a badge of honor. And that was the expectation. And then when I would be tired or when I would have an emotional meltdown, basically, is what would end up happening. And I wouldn't be able to work because I couldn't stop crying and I couldn't stop like blubbering, basically, because I'd like freaking lost it for a minute, because that was the level of pressure that I had allowed to build up in myself before addressing it. I would be so mad at myself for these stupid emotions that are getting in my way. And the only reason they were getting in my way is because I was ignoring them all along the way. I was like expecting myself to operate like a machine, like a robot. And I was not being sensitive with myself. I was not taking good care of myself. I was not investing any time into the maintenance that would set me up for success. And it was causing basically like, if your septic tank, like the pipes burst or something like that, and you have sewage backing up into your house, that's an urgent fucking issue. Like if you're having an emotional meltdown in front of your boss, like blubbering, like, I can't do this anymore. That's a septic tank pipe burst, and you've long since ran out of spoons, and now you went and like broke yourself a little bit. You got a pipe burst. We're gonna have to dig it up. We're gonna have to excavate this. We're gonna have to like pull out the old pipes, lay new pipes, do a deep clean, probably replace the floor. Like there's damage that gets done versus like, they show on TV like that little commercial, you just drop this thing in your toilet tank and it like goes down in and it like eats on your septic tank so that you're like at less risk for a backup. And so it's like with even just like a little bit of maintenance all along the way, you can kind of like avoid that very natural and logical outcome of like if you just pile it full, eventually it's too full and eventually it has to come out. So monitoring our self-talk can let us know where are we draining our own energy by operating on expectations that aren't fair to us, that aren't realistic to us, that aren't in alignment with our heart and soul, that aren't in alignment with how our unique energy is wired to function. Like, where are we holding ourselves to other people's standards is basically the root of why we're looking at our self-talk, to find out, like, is it my soul talking to me, or is it that conditioned parental authority figure who taught me that I was doing it wrong and I should be more like this? And now I'm trying to hold myself to that standard. I'm trying to be how they thought I should be, and I'm failing and I'm mad at myself over it. But it's like, yeah, before we beat up on you too much, like, what do you think? How do you think you should be? What feels right to you? And maybe the expectation that you're holding can be taken out, much like a splinter can be removed, and there will be healing around it if you can get that expectation out of your system. And how do you do that? That's where I loop back to number one. Get in nature, connect yourself to the planet, connect yourself to this dominant perspective that all is truly well. This entire universe is based in well-being. The fact that we're even here, it's a magical thing. That's all I have for you on this episode of the I Learned podcast. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any other ideas that come to mind as far as, like, in your experience, how have you managed to get more spoons? Like, exercise is another one that comes to mind. Like, you have to have a certain amount of extra energy, a certain amount of spoons to spend on exercise in the first place. But that's an example of an activity that you invest spoons in, but that actually in the long term, and if you add that impact to your energetic grid over a consistent period, it will have, like, it'll yield spoons. It'll give you spoons, not just cost spoons. So maybe you put in 3 spoons today, but that's going to give you 5 spoons tomorrow, 5 spoons the day after that, and 5 spoons the day after that. So it has like a reward that's associated with investing your energy like that. And I think nature is a lot the same way. Like, if you even go and walk on a beach for an hour, that's going to have effects for the next several days that you can feel in terms of, like, the filtration that you experienced on that day in that hour. The effects aren't restricted to that hour. They definitely spill over into the days that follow. So you can see, with even just like a few intentional hours of self-care a week, you can truly impact your energetic grid to get more of the gunk that's floating in the water, get it filtered out, get the water crystal clear so you can see so perfectly out into the world and what's really going on around you, and you can spot the opportunities for connection that are there, because they are all around us all the time. But when we're in our own fog, it can be difficult to see through that and see things in a way where we're allowing ourselves to take advantage of what's there. So, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you take such good care of yourselves, that you spend your spoons on the things that are most important, and you think about what might you be able to do to take even better care of yourself, to even squeeze another 10 spoons out of your energy, so that, what could you spend those on? What could you do to invest in the world around you, in your home life, in your relationships, like, to take that energy and use it to make your life better? It's all inside of you. There's a whole universe, a whole microcosm inside of you. I hope you'll take such good care of it. And so will I.